What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Mary Ann Bohrer. Now she's a professional communication specialist, intuition advocate who has interviewed some of the most gifted intuitives in the world. Now she's also interviewed top scientists, PSI researchers, academics, and even a leading Catholic archbishop regarding the topic of intuition. And she shares her finding in her book, The Gift Within. Now, this teaches each and every one of us that regardless of religious background, we all have this amazing and life-changing gift simply by listening to our own inner voice. Mary Ann Bora, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. It's great to be here.
This is going to be a fascinating conversation because we've had a little bit of a chat off air as well, and just got to know each other a little bit. I knew when I started to look at your book that I was like, there's something really good about this book. And it's called The Gift Within, Intuition, Spirituality, and the Power of Our Inner Voice. And we'll be putting the book up on the screen as well throughout this interview. Your website, Mary, is?
My name, Mary Ann Bohrer, www.MaryAnnBohrer.com.
Okay, well, that's going to be coming up on the screen as well. Thanks just for that. It's just for the podcast as well, so people can get the website. How would you sum up this book? How would you?
The book basically seeks to change the way we perceive intuition. I interview 33 highly gifted intuitives from the U.S. and around the world and tell their personal stories and also tell what they would like to impart to us, the wisdom that they've learned, because I want to rip down the stereotype that all of these gifted people are either fakes, crazy, or what have you. They just happen to be regular people who happen to have an extraordinary intuitive gift. And the main reason for doing that is so that each one of us regular folk, understand, number one, that it's okay to have intuition, that we all have intuitive ability, and that frankly, it's a positive thing to tap into your inner voice. And you gain all this incredible wisdom that's right at our fingertips, but many of us kind of shy away from it because intuition has been made fun of over the years. Oh, it's just silly woman's intuition, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a powerful form of communication that many of us overlook.
And when that intuition comes to you, is it your own voice coming back to you in a more wiser, loving manner?
When you have a thought, Kevin, how does that come to you? It's quiet. It's there. You can feel it. It's not like a spooky voice or anything like that. It's not even my own voice. It's a quiet knowing, a thought, an inspiration. I don't really use the word idea much anymore. I use the word inspiration, in spirit, because I'm well aware of the fact that while many of my thoughts are just my own mundane thoughts, I'm going to make meatloaf tonight or whatever, I have certain thoughts that come to me. Everyone's heard it. It just came to me that I'm very well aware because I've kind of developed this muscle that, wow, oh, this is an inspired thought I'm getting from my intuition. And I'm smart enough, thank goodness, to finally be able to recognize that. I'll give you one example. The cover of my book has a bow. It's white. It's not new agey. This came to me as an idea. Call it the gift, right? The name, The Gift Within Us, that came to me as well. I had many working titles. Finally, this was like, wow. So that's not just Mary Ann. I'm listening.
Yeah, and with that kind of cover, it can be a gift for many different occasions. Do you know what I mean? And have you been surprised with the success of the book as well so far? Just tell us a bit about the success of the book.
Well, the book only came out at late March, which is, of course, was the height of the global pandemic. And I have to laugh because it's very amusing. I've been writing this book for a long time, and I could have pulled it. I could have just said, no, Amazon, don't do it now. But I felt very strongly. In fact, it is an incredibly good time to do this because people are seeking. So oddly enough, a month after the book came out, Amazon sent me an email saying, did you know you're number one in the spiritual self-help category, your book? And out of 6,000 books that have come out in the past 90 days, you're number 11. I'm like, no. And I actually had to screenshot that. It was crazy. I've done some PR around this, a little bit of pre-publicity in February, some in March when the book came out. But I stopped for 2 weeks doing any PR for this book because of the virus. I didn't want to bother journalists with my promotional thing. But no, it's done very well. And I think because people are seeking answers, because we've been forced to turn inward right now. And I think that people are they've been humbled by the virus. We've all been humbled by the virus. It's a tragic, horrible thing. On the other hand, it's taught us a lot of deep lessons. And I think people are very receptive and yearning to seek that connection with spirit.
Absolutely. I've said this on many times on my show that it's the one conversation we're having more and more right now, which is the conversation on death. It's a conversation that's uncomfortable for a lot of people, but is there something more than just this? When our loved ones pass on, was it their time or was it unexpected? Is everything the way it should be? What is the nature of who I am, and what are we doing with our lives if there is more? Are we living the most fulfilling life that we could do? Do we all have the power to have what we truly desire? Do you know what I mean? And I could say so much more, but I want to just give the floor to you as well on that.
I have to say that there's a chapter in my book called My Memory of Heaven Before I Was Born. And I used to think it was just a child's dream, but it's very powerful and strong. And I do remember being there before coming here. And like a little kid, nervous and excited about my first day of school, I knew that I was going to be coming here to do some very interesting things. And I knew I'd miss my loved ones who were out there in this beautiful, bright light. But on the other hand, I knew I'd find them again. And when both of my parents passed, I felt like warm and comfortable with it because they were finally out of whatever pain they were in as human beings. And my mother has come through in readings and said, she was a little chubby and she had very bad pain in her back from sciatica. She smoked and she said, I look like I'm 32. I have a tiny little waist and I feel like fantastic. And my mother's sense of humor came through. And I think you understand this. To me, life is a school, okay? It's hard here. We come here to help our souls grow. It's school, it's work. There are wonderful things that happen and not so great things that happen. And that helps us expand and grow if we listen and if we learn. So I feel kind of when you die and you pass from the physical to the non-physical, it's like a graduation, and I think it's reason to celebrate. But I haven't lost anyone tragically. I think for people who've lost a loved one from suicide or a child or anything, obviously it's horrifying. So mine was I've been more normal transitions with older, relatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much, you could lose a limb could be just as
Oh, yeah.
horrific. Do you know what I mean? Or you could lose, um, uh, you know, your sight. There's so many things that could shift you into, a massive change in your life. And again, it could be very, less harsh. Do you know what I mean? It could be the loss of a job, loss of a career, which a lot of people are going through right now. Something that changes you to push you into a different direction in life, but maybe makes you think a bit more. Why am I here, and what could I do? That's could also help others, but also be more fulfilling to myself. But then again, you've had interviews with magazines where they've come across where that they're very much into the intuition, but they don't think it's anything more than just part of the human mind, the human psyche.
I have to share a story, and I won't name the magazine, but there was a very distinguished magazine recently that came out. I was in a supermarket line, and the cover was all about intuition. So, of course, I grabbed it, and I went home and I read it. And it was all about the fact that intuition is as important, if not more so, than your rational mind. I contacted the journalist, got his email, and I said, I'm so excited to talk to you. And he emailed me back, Mary Ann, I don't think we're on the same page because I don't believe in psychic ability. I believe that all intuition comes from our own brain. Okay, that's fine. But so yes, there's a camp that it's all coming from here. I know that I have some brilliant thoughts, but I know that a lot of what comes to me is not just because Mary Ann's so cool. You know what I'm saying? I have a lot of humility about that. And you can believe what you want to believe, and I'm not going to try to change your mind. That person is a great journalist, good for them. But yes, that shocked me, quite frankly. I don't know how you can write about intuition and not understand where it's coming from.
Well, even after all these amazing people that you've interviewed for the book, just remind us, how many people were there again that you interviewed?
33.
33, right? Even with all the books that they've done, and the time that you spent taping them and listening back to them and everything else, right? What really do you know more about them, where you started off from, about the nature of what this really is? Because we've got wonderful names for it all, but even the people that gave you that information, it's just a grain of sand on an infinite beach of what it really is.
I think that the one common thread throughout all of this is that the people that are highly intuitive, they have an inner knowing that it's not just all about them. Their egos are in check. They're often, they're famous, gifted people, psychics who are full of ego. So it's not everybody, but the people that I've interviewed in my book are both highly gifted and have high integrity. They're not about ego, but they've kind of given over to understanding that even though they can't see them or feel them in most cases, some I guess can, they know that this greater good, this greater wisdom is coming from another source, a source of love and a source of goodness and wisdom. And they tap into that, and they embrace it. And I think that humility and also the desire to help others, that's the common thread throughout all of this.
Right. And how did you go about choosing what you felt were the right ones to come into your book, to be given to the audience that has so appreciated the book that you've done?
Well, not to go into a long story, and I will not, but I did a press event many years ago, before the year 2000, and I had to find highly gifted psychics and mediums to be at this press conference to talk about what's going to happen in Y2K. So I already knew a bunch of really gifted people who became my friends. But when doing this research, I would ask those gifted people, as well as some of the scientists I interviewed for my book, who study psychic ability, who they would recommend. Then I would have 2 interviews with each person. I would explain who I was. I would get a reading. I would tape the reading. And I don't need to have readings, but it helps me understand how they work, who they are. And I would impart in the beginning of their chapter some of maybe what they told me, how they work. Then I would have another, about a week later, interview with them about their lives, how they grew up, what they felt as children. Many were bullied, etc. How they came into doing this full time, or some maybe only do it part-time, but whatever. And then what they want to impart to us, what they've learned spiritually. And then I would transcribe all that, send it back to them as a chapter, and they would look at it, bless it or whatever, change whatever. And then that's part of the book. But they were all through word of mouth. I would say out of all of the people I was referred to, maybe 4 or 5 I didn't connect with. The reading just was really off. One or two were just so full of ego, wanting to hire me as a PR person on the side to make them famous. I just said, no. But most of them were fantastic. Their gift just blew me away. And many said similar things to me about my life and my future. But of course, they don't know each other. People always think, oh, they've Googled you. Well, that is crazy. It's just not possible. Some of the things I was told, nobody even ever knew. So, and I share some of those great stories in the book.
Yeah, and we have to remember that these are just human beings that are more open to this connection, or it's like a funnel. The funnel's like, what, it is open in a sense. It's not so restricted. It's like a pipe that's restricted in a sense. Because when we come here, I mean, me and you can't remember ever being anywhere else right in this moment. I barely remember my childhood. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It is talked about, isn't it, that we come from somewhere, we go back to this somewhere, and we've chosen to come here and everything else. But all I know is there's something more, and these people are going through their own issues. So some are, and we're all on a journey. No one's perfect. We never
Mm.
find perfection here in anything, right? So yeah, and depending where they are in their evolution, yeah, their soul evolution depends, I suppose, on if they're gonna be the right fit for you in a sense. But as you said, there's those with ego and there's those without, and there's those that think they have the gift. And we had this conversation off air. Just tell us about that side of your investigation into this, where they think they've got the gift, but actually they're just it's kind of surface level tuning in. It's just kind of like cold reading in a sense.
Well, I think that there's three factions that I've found. The one group is the out and out fakes. Now, to me, that's a very small number of people. Most people, there are corporations that have hotlines, et cetera. Some are valid, but many just hire someone off the street and they're suddenly psychic. So that's the fakes. Then the largest group is what I call the well-meaning but mediocre. They're not there trying to take your money and telling you fake things. They genuinely believe they're very gifted, and to some extent, they probably are gifted. However, the mistake is unfortunately, the reason they don't resonate with you, you walk away going, didn't really get me. They're picking up on your hopes and dreams, your fears, your thoughts. So they're going right to your aura. And maybe they'll tell you you'll get that ex-boyfriend will come back, or you'll get that job. It just doesn't feel right. And of course, it doesn't happen. The third group are a small number, which is really super highly gifted intuitives. And that is who I have in my book. The difference with them is that they're getting the information from the source. It's very pure. It may not have anything to do with what you're hoping or dreaming or fearing. And it's very, very accurate. And I want to mention also, although I want people to develop their own intuitive ability, and so that we all have it, I do have the contact information for each of the 33 gifted people at the end of my book, because I want people to have an access to people who are truly gifted, high integrity, and all of these people, their information is listed, so you can get in touch with them if you want a reading from a really gifted person. But no, I would say that it's not that these people are phonies or doing cold readings. They're doing their best. We all can sing. We can't all sing like Adele. So the mediocre folks sing in an okay way. But the people that are highly gifted that I have in my book, and they had to be really highly gifted and high integrity to get there, very rare. But there are many. What annoys me is on television, you'll see one celebrity psychic, and the host will say, "Thank you, you're so gifted, it's wonderful." And I just wait for them to say, "But I'm not the only one." But they never do. They say, "Thank you, I'm very gifted."
Yeah, there's so many people that need help sometimes. There's a healer for everyone that fits in, and maybe it's on a soul level as well. Who knows? That maybe sometimes you resonate with a certain reader because there's a deeper reason why that we haven't worked out yet. And you're not against the sort of scientific research into this and the scientific kind of quantum theories, all the wonderful stuff that we that's sort of being shared with us now on the potential nature of reality. You kind of combine that in your book, and you talk about some of that stuff as well, don't you?
I have a chapter called Today's Brave Paranormal Explorers, and I focus on three scientists, Dr. Dean Radin, Dr. Gary Schwartz, and Dr. Russell Tark, who have spent their careers, and I mean, they're from the best universities, et cetera, exploring these types of topics. Uh, and they don't do it to further their career because it's quite the taboo in the scientific community. But they've got, and all of their colleagues will publicly say, "Oh, that's just crazy to explore that." Privately, they'll come up to them at conferences and say, "I had this experience with intuition. I had that psychic experience." But currently, it's been a taboo in the scientific community. So I applaud these scientists. I embrace that, and that portion of what the work that they've done is always going to be part of what I talk about.
Good, 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 good. That needs to be embraced into this because it's we need science. I mean, without it, where would we be? Do you
Well,
know?
look at I have a chapter in my book about scientists who were told they were crazy when they came up with various different theories, like the Earth is not flat, it's round. I mean, each of them was made fun of in their own time. Joseph Lister was a scientist who said that germs were spread through the hands and that people should wash their hands. Now, this is appropriate today with the virus, but he was actually made fun of. And the stories are in the book of these scientists that went down these paths, bravely said, "This is what I believe," even though everyone else thought something else. And they were ultimately right. But many were tortured actually through their lives for taking this brave stance. And I believe that these paranormal explorers, these great scientists, one day they'll be empowered. People will say you were right, but who knows what? I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Well, they listen to that inner voice sometimes, and sometimes the inner voice doesn't give us an answer. We're not supposed to um, maybe even be guided by anything. Maybe we've just got to go through what we're going through, and there's something on the other end for doing that. I mean, there are some times when I've tried to ask my inner voice, and I just don't get an answer.
Well, Kevin, it's interesting you say because it's true. Again, we're human beings. This is school, okay? We're meant to learn. And sometimes we're supposed to go through these dry periods. It's not like a faucet you can turn on and off. I would say most of the time, though, you will get answers if you ask for help. But sometimes what an archbishop that I quote in my book, a Catholic archbishop, a family friend, he says sometimes we're meant to go through what's the desert of the soul. And that's how we grow. Think about it. You don't want every time your kid falls, just rushing over. They need to learn. So there will be times when you're not going to just snap your fingers and get an answer. However, for the most part, answers do flow often.
Yes, yes, they do. And you may say, well, I listened to my intuition and look what it's done for me. Look what road it's taken me down. I'll never listen to my intuition again. I'll just go with the mental because it's just led me down a wrong path. But I say to people, actually, no, I mean, maybe there's no wrong path. But then there are times when we look back and say, oh God, I wish I never done that. I regret it. But I only regret it because of what I've had to go through. But then they don't say, well, what I've gone through has made me realize so much about myself. And had I not gone through it, it's that paradox, isn't it, in a sense?
Yeah, I have to say that there were times in writing this book that I became frustrated. Maybe the agent I had at the time was not getting anything done or whatever. And you think, I never wrote this book for money. I've always had my PR career. This is a labor of love. But ultimately, even during those kind of dark times where I was like, why am I even doing this? I just took a breath and realized, actually, it wasn't just realized, frankly, jokingly, they kind of pushed me, get back to it, Mary Ann. Okay, I'll do it. And that's why it's a joy to finally have given birth to this baby I've been caring for years.
It is. I mean, you was going to release it 2016, 2017, and probably, many years before that. I mean, it all led up to doing these interviews, not just doing these interviews, but I mean, getting the book on Amazon and actually being a published author. I mean, it's not, I mean, yes, for some people it can happen very quick, but that's just their journey. We compare ourselves sometimes, don't we? Like, why their success, not my success, but we're all on a different path, aren't we?
Well, the thing is, I believe in divine timing. And if the book didn't come out in 20, I know people who forced, I'm going to make this happen now. and the book just sits there. I believe in divine timing. I believe that they know better than me that when this is to come out. And I feel they have an ironic sense of humor that it comes out at the height of a pandemic. People can't even go into bookstores, but Amazon is very powerful now. And so I have to go with the flow. I go with what I've been given to go. And so I don't question it. I mean, I'm not coming from ego. I'm not forcing this to happen when I want it to happen. I'm listening.
And I mean, if you just a little slight life review here, looking at yourself back in the day, just teetering, kind of on the edge of doing this work, right, to where you are now. I guess you would never have imagined, that you would be doing this.
No, I think I mentioned to you offline that the first gifted psychic person I knew had told me in the 1990s, and I was a PR person working in a big PR firm in New York, that I was going to write a book that was going to make great change or something. And I forgot all about this. And the other day we were talking, and she said, "Mary Ann, don't you remember? I told you about this book." I think she had it on tape or something. And she said, "You argued with me. You were grumpy. You said, 'I'm not an author. I'm a PR person.'" And I have to laugh because it wasn't even a seed in my brain at the time when she told me this. But she's in my book. Her name is Nancy Meyer. She's incredibly gifted. And yes, I don't, though, live there. I've been told things that for the future for me that are really astonishingly interesting. I still put on my pants one leg at a time every day and just go about my business.
I think that's a good point, what you're making there as well, that even though it was just, they had told you this and it wasn't something that you were prepared to go, they were telling you a potential reality that, if you go down that path, it's there for you. But we still have the free will in any reading and in any intuition and any voice that comes to our head to do that or not. Do you know what I mean? We've got free will is my point.
Yes, we have free will. But sometimes they're agonizingly correct. Like this same lady, when I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I am now, I had a job offer in New York City. I was in my late 20s or mid 20s, and I did not want to live in New York City. But this job was really great. So I had a plan. I would take the job, and then I would transfer back to they were headquartered in Pittsburgh. So I'd transfer back to Pittsburgh. So I went to get this reading, my first ever reading with this Nancy lady. And she looks at me and I told her my plan. And she says, "Mary Ann," she looked dead at me and she said, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're going to be in New York for many years before you come back." And my face just dropped. And we still laugh about it to this day. It's not what I wanted to hear. And I ended up living in New York for 14 years.
Just one thing I want to pick up on as well is what you were saying there. Well, you were kind of saying there is that, look, you've had success with this book, right? But even if you just touched the lives of a few people, right, and you were not aware of the changes that you'd made to just those few people's lives, wouldn't that have been worth it as well with this book?
Kevin, even if I finished the book, got it published, I would say I've done my part. My job wasn't done because now I have to promote it, but I'm a PR person by trade, dealing with media. So I'm groomed for this. But as long as I've done the worker bee part, writing it, editing it, getting it published, getting it promoted, I can rest easy. I've had feedback from a few people because it's only been out for just over a month. And one lady said to me, "My God," she said, "I turned away from the Catholic Church." She happened to be Catholic because of the sex abuse scandals. She said, "But after reading your book, Mary Ann, it's not about being Catholic, but my faith is restored. And I now understand about the afterlife and I'm not fearful of it. And I feel renewed." Well, I mean, it's amazing to hear such beautiful things, and again, it's not about her going to church. I shouldn't say this. If you're religious, you go to temple or synagogue or church, or good for you, more power to you, wonderful. But this book transcends religion. You don't have to be in a church or be a religion or any religion in order to access this divine wisdom. It's there. It's always been there. We're constantly getting inspirations all day, every day. It's not a spooky voice. It's right at our fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, some of the skeptics would say, well, none of it's real. We're just abusing our power just to give people hope that there's something more, and to say that Auntie Ethel's coming through and everything, she's okay, and that and she's feeling fine. But um, I always feel that it's some of the principles that come through the idea of that we do continue, and it helps you to live a better version of yourself in this moment, even if that wasn't true. That when we die, there's nothing, right? Well, you lived a better version of yourself just from knowing that that you've got this power to be the best, to have to be a better you, but also to that anything's possible in some respects. Not anything, but a lot of things are more possible in your life, and that you can do some of these wonderful things that you feel drawn to do. But I mean, it's kind of difficult to put that in a question. Do you know what I mean? But do you know what I mean? If it wasn't true, are we still, does it help us to become that greater version of us?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, anyone would want that. I mean, truthfully, I've had many different clients in my career. I I'm not going to mention the one I told you offline about, but I've had many different, from the beef industry to Weight Watchers International to the NFL to all sorts of different clients. But being able to work on this book, and previously I did work for battered women for free, which ended up getting me to the White House to get legislation passed to help battered women, and my income quadrupled. It's a chapter in this book. That was so much more gratifying me than promoting potato chips, promoting these messages that we're all loved and that we all have access to this divine wisdom just by taking our ego down a couple pegs and listening and making our lives better and making our paths smoother. And then in the process, maybe gaining more wealth or gaining more self-esteem or whatever. That's a better path for me. That's the ultimate, is to help others, to awaken others.
And also not, caring what people think as well.
You mean as far as psychics and all of
Yeah,
that?
just whatever you're into, just just block that noise out of what other people think about, what you're doing and stuff. Just live your purpose. Do you know what I mean? Do your thing.
Oh, I have to tell you, there is a faction of people that will never understand this in this lifetime anyway, and I'm not there to try to change their mind. There's also the group on the other side that are evolved and understand these things and are passionate about them. There's a large group in the middle right now that a research group called Pew, PEW Research, says is the fastest growing group. It's called the spiritual but not religious group. It's people who've turned away from traditional religion, but they're still seeking and yearning for that spiritual connection. They just don't know how to find it. And that's, I think, one of the reasons I was called to do this book.
Well, aren't you one of those people that are not, after this interview, going to grab your crystals and start, meditating and playing the harp? Do you know what I mean? You're not into that stuff. I mean, there was a time in this progression of spirituality that it had to be done a certain way. Abstain from this, don't do that. You know what I mean? That won't help you open your chakras up and all this bollocks, I call it. Do you know what I mean? I think we came here for the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but in balance, right? And that there's nothing. There's different. There's another way to look at all this, isn't there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have to say that I was on one show where the hosts were they said, our audience is going to love you, because they always ask us their first question, I'm not good at meditating. How do I connect? And I say, I'm like one of the worst meditators. I have great respect for people who are great at it. But it's like I'm such a white knuckler that they kind of have to, I joke, hit me over the head with a rubber mallet sometime to get me, or get me in the shower when I'm just waking up. You don't have to, I say in the book, if I had to hold crystals in my hand and focus on my chakras, I could never have written this book. Now, I respect people for that's their path, but it's so simple. The one sticking point that I have 6 simple steps to accessing your inner voice in the book. Probably the most important one is the one many people will have trouble with, which is taking your ego down a few pegs, be humble, and just listen. In our society, especially in the US today, with reality TV, we all think we're just all that. We're all great. It's all brilliance coming from us. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are just missing this divine wisdom that's really going to kind of give them the fast track, right? That's the little bit of humility and just listening and realizing that you're being helped here and that it's there for you. Ask them for help too. People, that is the key, really. If there's anything, there's nothing arduous about any of it. I will say that you do need to be quiet. Just kind of quiet yourself a little bit for a moment, and then and listen. Period. There's really nothing more complicated than those things.
Yes, and obviously the way that we live our life as well. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself, and
Hmm.
a few other basic principles as well. I'm not saying go out there and harm people. I'm saying it's in balance. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But yeah, there is that middle group as you mentioned earlier on, and just moving this forward as well. Obviously, this book is about intuition, and what are some of your basic steps in the book? I mean, I know there's quite a bit to the book, but just some basic ways to access your own inner voice.
Well, I'll give you some of the 6 simple steps. The first is quiet your mind. Now, have you ever had a big decision to make, like you're moving to another state or taking a job? Don't all of us do this one thing? If it's that big of a decision, don't we kind of stop for a minute and kind of just pause? We all just instinctively do that. What we're doing is we're quieting our mind to let something come in. We don't realize we're doing it, but we do it with big decisions. The second one is what I said before, be humble and take your ego down a few pegs. The third is trust your gut. Now that sounds like hackneyed, like we all know to do that. Many people, when they get this deep gut feeling, it's different from what your rational mind is telling you to do. So you're like questioning it. Really? I should go that way this time instead of driving this way? Trust your gut, because if you're getting that strong feeling, chances are you should pay attention to that and maybe heed that advice. Another one is ask for help. I say in the book, do you think that God, the universe, and the powers that be are too busy to care about our personal problems and to answer our questions? You would be wrong, because they're there to give. They're rooting for us. Okay, they're like a great mentor at work or something. If you need that kind of example, they want us to succeed. We can't be super shy and think, oh, we're not worthy of that. For example, I got this analogy from my guides the other day. In the old days of prayer, you hold the phone to your ear and you ask for help, but secretly you're thinking, are they listening? Am I worthy of this? Why am I? What we don't know is that they over there are also holding a receiver, wanting you to connect with them. So just realize you're not small potatoes. You're a human being. They want to help us. Ask for help, for God's sake. Another one is be open and believe we're not alone in this world. If we think that it just ends with us, we're not opening our minds enough. Now, as human beings, we can't, there's a veil. We can't really see everything. But just be aware that it doesn't just end here, okay? Especially with humans on the planet. There's really beautiful energy on the other plane that is loving energy, that is wise, smarter than we are, that want to help us. And the last thing is become adept at hearing this inner voice. And again, it's not a spooky thing. It's just a thought, but recognize that some of the inspirations you're getting, some of the thoughts you're getting from your help. The powers that be is what I call them. So just those are the simple steps. You don't have to do fancy things. It's very basic.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. And sometimes we are very good at complicating it, aren't we? And again, I'll just say, if you don't feel like you can, if you're trying to tune in and you just cannot make your mind up on what's being said, then maybe we should just leave it and come back to that question later.
Yeah, I've had times where I've said to them, okay, like, what do I do? And I'm not getting an answer. And I realize that I'm meant to kind of figure some things out on my own or deal with it. And I do. And then I've had other times where like doors fling open that I didn't even know would exist. And suddenly, like that, getting quadruple my income for helping battered women for free. It's just like, okay, here's piles of money. Wow. So you just have to be open. Things come when they come, but do ask for help and do ask for guidance. Maybe you won't get it every time, but I think on balance you get a lot of answers, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And how do we know how to discern the voice to make sure it's giving us the right information as well?
I I think that there's, as you mentioned, the higher self. we're not going to be given wrong information. Like my example of when that psychic Nancy told me I'm going to be in New York for years. I really, really resisted that. I mean, I just did not want to do it, but the job was so good. It was with one of the best firms in the world. I was being paid a lot of money. So I lived in New York City, but I flew back to Pittsburgh every weekend, right? The flights were cheap. It was before 9/11. You didn't have to take your shoes off. It was easy. Um, it was the right thing to do. And frankly, those years in New York City taught me great things about what I do in my career with PR, which is going to help me promote this book. So I found a way to live with it, and I flew back to Pittsburgh, and I could spend my weekends here and go there. You're not going to be getting, our gut feelings are honoring us. They're helping us. I don't think I've ever had the experience of getting strong gut feelings or intuitions that led me down a wrong path. If you might want to be with a partner, a lover or something, they're completely wrong for you. They're maybe abusive, whatever. And somehow you keep convincing yourself, go there, go there. Deep down, it's not good. So sometimes we suppress those gifts, those intuitions, to try to go our own way.
And maybe there's some part of you that you've got to work something out at a deeper level, that you've got to see something through. Not that you've got karmic ties together, but I mean, maybe there's just something that, without going further down that path, that you're not going to, sort some part of you out that needs to see a different perspective.
Yeah, there are no wrong paths. There's no wrong decisions. I mean, in my own life, I've made some decisions that cost me as far as creating havoc in my life. But if I hadn't gone through that problem, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm today and helping other people. There's no way.
But did, Crossy need to take that hammer to that guy's head? Did he need to take that baseball bat and shove that knife in that guy's chest? He took someone's life for doing that. So how can we class that as not a wrong decision? Or are we going to say there's something much bigger working karmically there that wanted to be played out?
I think that many of us in our previous life, before we came here again, knew that there are certain milestones that were going to happen in our lives. The people you're talking about are at the end of the spectrum, a severe dysfunction or whatever, harming someone else, killing someone else. I don't know the answers to that. That's not part of who I am. I know that people who abuse people, because I worked with domestic violence, if your children grow up in that, the chances that your son is going to batter a woman are very high. The chance that your daughter is going to marry an abusive guy, very high. Get them out of the house before age 2, period. So I do know that there's certain patterns that are repeated. And I know that our souls are meant to go through things, maybe karmic things, as you described. As far as murder, that's an area that I can't really get into. Some of the people in my book, including Nancy, who I've mentioned before from Pittsburgh, has worked as psychic detectives with the FBI to find missing children. Now, often these missing children are dead. It's not a fun thing to work on, but that's as close to murder and death as I've gotten with intuition. So
yeah, no, I think, I mean, who knows? Maybe there are other attachments out there that are working on people. And, someone allows that to come into them and, still goes ahead with free will with that voice, and the outcome is not always, it is what it is. But there is another, we're all very much, in the light community, but there is another side to life that we can't ignore. Do you know what I mean? There's the yin and the yang.
Yeah, it's a dark side that I'm not drawn to. Quite frankly, I've fortunately been around a more positive group of people. But with what you're doing with your other work, with these murders and others, it's fascinating to me. And it would be really wonderful and interesting to explore where they're coming from. I mean, I think mental illness plays a part in a portion of these things. People hearing voices wanting to kill, I don't know what percentage that is. But no, to go into it to the depth that you've explored, I've not done that. And
Well, exploring, shall I say, right? I think there are such things as damaged minds. That the body can be, the mind can actually be damaged as well, and no, I was very much into the light subjects for a long time, but there is another side to this, and it's I think, if there's going to be hot, there's going to be cold. There's going to be cold, there's going to be hot. Do you know what I mean? There's all the in-betweens in there as well. And I think everything's spiritual in a sense. I think everything's got a deeper karmic meaning. And I think that's probably part of the exploration of that. But yeah, just talking about voices and stuff, we have to, and I think any voice that's ever come to me has only been loving. And I think the same to you as well.
yes, I had a client who had bipolar disorder, and he's a race car driver, and he wrote a book, and it's called Bulletproof. And he one day he had children and everything, but he drove up a mountain in his Jeep, and he took out his gun and he put it to his head, and he pulled the trigger because his bipolar self was telling him to do that. And luckily, the bullet was defective. So he wrote a book called Bulletproof about that experience. He still struggles with bipolar disorder, but I helped him go around and go on shows to talk to people about those struggles, to understand more about bipolar disorder and suicide, especially in men.
Oh yeah, yeah, and maybe at some deeper level, that's there's some other reason why that's taking place. Maybe, I mean, do we choose some of these bigger situations? Do you say, hey, I'm in the life between life stage. Over here, I'll be the victim, and there's over there, yeah, I'll take your life, and we'll share that experience. We'll bring it back to this life review place, and anyone can download that life and get to experience these experiences and get to feel what it's like. Because up here, of the all knowing or the all that just is, we don't get to accelerate like that. I don't know. It sounds, for some people, they may say, well, that's a bit too far fetched. But who knows? I mean, what if the taste of milk chocolate is just as just as so it's such a craving for just to have that human experience of that as is all the nuances in between the lives that we experience. I mean, what is it all about? Well. I don't know, but that there is a bigger picture, probably a much bigger picture to all this.
Oh, there is. And I think when we transition, we see things so much more clearly than we can here. Again, as human beings, when people say, who are your powers that be? Is it guides, angels? It's kind of God. It's kind of a combination. But I don't know exactly because I'm a human being. But I often say that I'm so blessed to have the colleagues on this plane, but also the colleagues on that plane. And when I was writing my book, they have such a sense of humor. I often joke that I feel like I have access to the writer's room at Saturday Night Live, because they would be so funny. And that's the other thing. The other reason I put this book in just plain, not new age. People think that things that are new age have to be scary or dark or serious, and no, they have such an incredible sense of humor and wit and irony that we don't need to always go into this haunting and it's spooky.
Oh, God, I know, we're still doing it. I know,
They're still doing
oh man, well, it's it makes money, I guess. Do you know what I mean? It brings an audience to that type of stuff. But no, I'm way past that, and I think you're a trendsetter for even doing having the book cover the way it is. Do you know what I mean? Just to bring it down and tone it down. That everything's spiritual, or you could say what is not God in a sense. Everything's God, isn't it? Everything's this universal kind of energy. That's there's nothing that isn't God. Well, to me, there is. I mean, some people might argue, well, some things are not. But I think it's all experience, isn't it? And as you said earlier on in this interview, we come down here to this school to have experience. And I think you've said before in other interviews where, maybe the spirit side looks at this and thinks, we're the ones that are in the kindergarten. There's no teacher there. There would be chaos. I think you've used those words before.
Yeah, I say, well, it was something that came to me early in the morning, and they said, imagine a classroom of 5 and 6-year-old kids in kindergarten, all 8-hour day. There's no adult supervision. There would be bullying and mayhem and chaos. And they said that's kind of what the humans are like now. left to our own devices, kind of look where we are. And they're not putting us down, but they're saying we need that guidance. We need to listen. We need that a little bit of supervision, a little bit of wisdom to help guide us. And they come to us with love. It's not like they're jeering us or anything. But we would be wise to listen to them, because truthfully, do look at the state of the world. Before the pandemic, everyone was allowing all sorts of crazy things. I'm not getting political, but to happen, saying, well, at least my 401k and my savings look good. At least I can allow all this bad stuff to happen because I have a good bank account. Well, everything's gone kind of to hell in a handbag. And the environment was going badly, and we didn't care. And it was all about us, us, us. And what we've learned is no. And Mother Nature's and the universe is quite powerful and kind of has put us down and said, you're having a timeout because you need to listen, need to pay attention.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look at the before and after pictures of a lot of the big just US cities, and the pollution before and the pollution after. I mean, look what we were doing. There's proof there now. We were actually raising the stakes. Do you know what I mean?
Without care, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's I mean, yeah, the economic repercussions right now of what's going on is dreadful for a lot of people, and it's a complete and utter shake-up, and it's something there's no vaccine for. This is ongoing just for now, and the death rate, I mean, it's terrible, right? But hasn't it been, for some people, a way to shake them out of the patterns that they were in and to reevaluate what's important in their lives right now?
I was told by a number of the gifted people in my book, they didn't say virus. They knew some correction would be happening in early 2020. They didn't know exactly. They didn't know if it was a terrorist attack, a war, the market would crash, whatever. But they said something's going to happen that's going to shake up the world. It's going to raise human consciousness, help heal the planet, and change the way we are forever. And it's going to be tragic and difficult, but extremely beneficial in the long term and the short term. And then this happened. I mean, it is very hard. And there's just, I have friends that nearly died of it that live in New York City, struggled, couldn't breathe for a month, just horrors. And they didn't die, but I know people that died, and even children dying. It's horrifying. And I don't even want to say silver lining because it just is horrifying. However, it has humbled us. It has raised our consciousness. It has helped the planet so far. My husband is very skeptical because people are going to go back to the way they were. I think some people definitely will go back to the way they were, but I think that it's forever changed the way we do broadcasting, how we work. I've worked from home by choice since my daughter, who's 18, was born. I love working from home. Now the world has learned you don't have to spend expensive money.
Look at
right. That's changed.
Yeah. Facebook announced that just a few days ago that they're now going to 50% of the workforce is now going to work from home. Okay, there's a financial saving there, right? But it's still a massive change. And like, as you say, even the way we broadcast right now, oh my God, it's some of these bigger name celebrities that when they're doing their broadcasts and stuff, just not even to have the right equipment. Do you know what I mean? And how they couldn't have been prepared for that by their student. Well, they're not technical minded, I guess, a lot of them, but still, do you know what I mean? This online broadcasting that a lot of people have done, it's kind of showing up, quality wise of what's possible. Do you know what I mean? Compared to those who have not gone down that trend. But yeah, there's so much has changed, and it is changing, and
it will stay changed.
Yes. Just for yes. Well, I was going to say for a while there, but maybe in the karma. Yeah, I think so. And just before you go as well, because I know we're time is not on my side right now, but in your book as well, do you address who your kind of group is that you're talking to sometimes? Have you sort of gone there with that publicly? Like, you say you've got this intuition, but have you kind of spoken to them about, well, who is this?
I think it's a conglomeration of, I guess, my guides, my angels, God, my higher self, maybe some deceased loved ones who are helping. Again, being human, that is part of the deal. We can't know or see exactly who they are. I know they've got great sense of humor. They're whip smart, okay? I mean, they're kind of, if they were living here, they'd be people I'd hang with. And similarly, when I met a lot of gifted people all those years ago when I did that press conference before the year 2000, I felt like I'd met my family. Like I felt so close to these people, and I hadn't really hung out with people who were gifted before. So, and my best friends are either journalists, typically, or gifted people. I have lots of other types of friends, but those two groups, right? So the people on the other plane that you're asking, who are they? I'm if you read my book, you read a chapter where even Einstein comes into it. I don't know who exactly all of them are. I know that they're great, fantastic people that I would be honored to be friends with here, but they're there. And so we communicate this other way. And they're the reason I'm doing this book. They've kind of drafted me to write it. They're the reason I'm doing this interview. The messages that they've given to me, which I agree with, I wouldn't be communicating them if I didn't also personally believe in them. But quite frankly, I'm just kind of the spokesperson doing this job as a worker bee. And I'm proud to do it if it helps people. But I think we need to listen and to wake up and realize it's right there. It's super simple. I want to give one last message if I have a
Sure,
moment.
please.
Do you remember the movie The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, yes, classic.
You remember Dorothy? She's attacked by flying monkeys and she's in the
Yeah.
poppies. This craziness happens. She finally gets to Oz and the wizard can't get her back to Kansas. So the beautiful Glinda comes down and she says, but Dorothy, you've always had the ability to go back to Kansas. And she taps her heels together and she goes, that's one of the messages they gave me waking up one day was, it's right there. It's just a mindset of knowing that we have this ability to communicate with them just by listening. But humility plays a little part, period. We have it. It's not scary. It's a thought that comes in. Just recognize that not every thought you think comes from your own brain, that they're helping us, and be open to receiving the help.
Well, do you think sometimes it's nice to have our house cleaned out by someone else, like a reader or someone, whatever type of reading you might be getting, but but we can do it ourselves.
I think that it would be great. Sometimes I even put some of the people in my book in touch with each other because, like all giving people, they think of themselves last. And sometimes they have, I mean, these people, some have been divorced, some have been in abusive relationships. Their lives are not perfect. So sometimes I put them in touch and they do a trade. I think that if you want a really great reading, either ask someone at your local metaphysical bookstore. They often know who in town is good. But I can tell you that the people in this book are fantastic, high integrity. And yes, I think it's actually good, as you put it, to clean out house. Don't talk a lot if you get the reading. Just let them talk, tape it, or take notes. And then you can ask questions at the end. But you'll be shocked at how accurate they are. And it will give you a new perspective on your own life. So yes, we can communicate through intuition, but having a reading with one of these people, I find that many, and their contact info, as I said, is in the back of the book.
Back of the book, yeah.
Try it, and each one is more fantastic than the other. So
a bit like a spiritual advisor in a sense.
They are just super great at communicating. You're great at what you do. I have my own skill set. These people, some describe themselves like a satellite dish. I mean, it's like getting the clearest signal you can get for a broadcast or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like you're going top line with these people. They can tap. Some are mediums, some are psychics, some are both. There's quite a little bit of a difference. Some people told me what my deceased loved ones were telling me. Others had another kind of gift where they could tell me what was going to happen in the future. Some have both. It's you'll read, you'll see I describe them in the book, but definitely treat yourself to a reading if you want. You'll see exactly what I mean. Their rates, I think, are pretty reasonable. I don't really know them, but a half-hour session with one of these people could be a fantastic thing. Again, it's up to you, the listener, but it's there in the book if you want. All the info's there.
The word psychic has had a bad rap. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
And I've tried to stay away from that word as well, but they're just words. Do you know what I mean? To try to describe what this gift is, and I mean, it's a word that psychic that most people would get, but it doesn't really equate to what these people are really doing. Do you know what I mean?
it's such, words do have power. And as a PR person, as a writer, definitely they have power. The unfortunate thing about the P word, psychic, is it has been maligned forever. I choose to go around it. I do mention those words in the book, but intuition and giftedness is what I mostly talk about, because that's really, they're not loaded words. That's what these people are. And unfortunately, the charlatans and the fakes also use the word psychic. It's too much. It's there. I don't hide from the words, but they do have power. So I better go another way and really focus on the positive aspects of these amazing, the gift. Who can argue with a gift? Who wants to give
No,
back?
it makes me want to get that book and give it to someone, actually, to be honest with you, right? It really is, well done. And, it's a great read as well. I mean, I've browsed through it for this interview, do you know what I mean? But there's a number of chapters in there, and there's a lot of good stuff. And your website, just remind us one more time, is?
It's www. And then my name, Mary Ann Bohrer, MaryAnnBohrer.com.
Okay, and people obviously can connect with you directly through your website as well if they've got some questions.
Yeah, there's email, there's, I think, phone. Yes, and anyone can do that. I also have a Facebook, which is, again, my name, Mary Ann Bohrer. And you can, and all those links are on my website, Instagram, Facebook. You can just, I'm not a big Twitter person.
What we'll do, we'll just put in all those links in the description of this video as well. Yeah, I mean, there's so much more we could have said. Oh, but let's just say this as well. You are doing another book. There is another book in development, and I'm sure that's going to be an exciting book to get you back on with as well. So I look forward to that, definitely. I've really enjoyed my time with you.
Yeah, same here, Kevin. We have to talk more. We have a lot more to do.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, listen, Mary, just thank you so much for joining us today.
Kevin, I'm going to go back and look at some of your other archived work. You've been doing this for a while, and my hat's off to you. And I'm glad I found you. And thank you, and all of your listeners. You have a pretty informed group of listeners and viewers that are loyal to your show. It's always great to have an interview with somebody who has such informed listeners and viewers. So I appreciate the time that we've had, and I look forward to hopefully talking with you again.
Thank you.